Hey everybody, this is Mike Jones again from Texas, the cop, retired cop from Texas.
G'day, Mike. I'm Pete, the retired cop from New South Wales, Australia.
Yeah, first of all, good to see you again, Peter.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah.
So, yeah, I saw that comment. Was it on your show too? Because it was on mine by Laurid Mills, 7581.
Yeah.
Laurie. And she says, I have two questions for you both, if I may. I'm curious about gun laws and castle law, the
Mm.
similarities and the differences between the U.S. and Australia, or Texas and New South Wales at any rate. My second question is about who polices the government
Ah,
departments.
yeah.
She says, you mentioned how the ACC oversees policing the police in New South Wales, but who polices the government employees,
Yeah.
etc. So
Yeah.
I'm going to defer to you to start on this.
Well, I really don't know about who polices the police. I suppose I do. There's the thing called the Police Integrity Commission, and things can be referred to them. Um, I don't know. I really don't know that much about it. I just wasn't my rank in the coppers wasn't sufficient enough to become involved in that sort of thing. So I really don't know. There's like, of course, within the police, there's the internal affairs. I know that there's if
Still the
we,
police, and the police.
yeah. And I know that within the New South Wales Police, if there's a critical incident, and an example of a critical incident would be if the police shot somebody,
Hmm.
or if there's a death in custody.
Hmm.
Then the people who investigate that come from another command, so they sort of don't know the police personally.
Yeah.
That but there's a big issue about death in custody in Australia is a huge issue,
Yeah.
particularly
It
amongst
is here too.
the Aboriginal community, which is our Indigenous people. It's a huge thing about it. But what a lot of people don't understand is what constitutes a death in custody. And from memory, it's from Section 13 of the Coroners Act. It's a fairly extensive piece of legislation about what constitutes in custody. And it includes, for example, if I'm chasing someone in a pursuit in motor vehicles, that vehicle could be a kilometre away. And if that person that I'm chasing dies, that is a death in custody.
Oh,
So it's
wow.
quite encompassing. It's and yeah, same with the foot pursuit. If I'm chasing someone in a foot pursuit, that person dies, that's a death in custody.
Hmm.
So it's a big net. And so how that gets policed, how police get policed would be one of the ways would be probably through a coroner's court, because there'd be a coroner's inquest into that. I think, again, I'm not sure, but I think most likely would be an automatic coroner's inquest. And that, of course, gets scrutinised, and that's a pretty high level of scrutiny.
Hmm.
And as you know, the police are scrutinised from inside, from outside, from left and right, and every angle. And
But that's our own fault as a organization, you know.
yeah,
Or yeah, we have some bad people that squeak through the, you know, we've all worked with some people that
yeah,
should
mm.
never have a badge, you
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
We just
Um,
didn't have to say so.
yeah. One of the things that I better stick to the question. So there's the Police Integrity Commission, and I've actually referred something. Something happened during my time in the police, and something happened, and I referred it to the Police Integrity Commission, and they weren't interested.
Mm,
They said not important enough to refer to us, and then the matter just went cold. And I
yeah.
thought it was potentially a pretty serious matter, but yeah, they weren't interested. So, man, you can only do what you can do.
And it dies right there if they
It
don't want to
dies
go
right
forward.
there. Yeah, yeah. No, they just weren't interested.
What about the
Which,
gun laws and the castle law?
yeah. So I think I don't know what castle law means. I'm imagining that maybe harken back to England. I don't really know, but I just did a quick Google of castle law, and so in Australia, we have the right, of course, of defending yourself, and So the word used is reasonable, and it's in the Act of Parliament that we used, or still it probably still uses, called the Crimes Act 1900. And in the Crimes Act, it uses the word reasonable. What is reasonable force? You can use reasonable force to effect an arrest. And of course, shooting someone dead is a form of arrest. And so, but it's got to be reasonable. And so I get sick of hearing people say, "Oh, you can't apprehend anybody." Yes, you can. You just got to be reasonable about it. And I used to say to people, an example of reasonable force would be if I was an 87-year-old man and I was a bit crippled up with arthritis and I was half blind and I was sitting in my chair inside my house and an 18-year-old male comes crashing through the window with a baseball bat and going to hit me with it, and I just happen to have a double-barrel shotgun on my lap, and I use the shotgun on that person, that would be reasonable.
It'd be reasonable in Texas.
Yeah, I'm sure it would be. But but if I was a 25-year-old male built like a brick toilet, muscle bound and very agile and everything, and another 18-year-old male come through the window with a baseball bat, or say no baseball bat, and I shot him, that probably wouldn't be considered reasonable.
Really?
Probably not. No, I mean it's got to, and within the Crimes Act 1900, it has actually a dictionary in it, and it defines things like reasonable. It has its own definition.
Hmm.
And to answer that lady's question, there's a pretty, you might say, an infamous case in New South Wales a long time ago where there was a man who was a shopkeeper. He had a little takeaway food shop, I think it might have been, or a corner shop, and he was being the victim of repeated shoplifting offences. And one day, this bloke came into his shop and he stole something, and he chased him up the street, righto. Now, and then he caught him, took hold of him, and put him on the ground. All that's reasonable. All that is citizens' power of arrest. But what he did then, I think it might have been a piece of garden hose that he might have been carrying, and then he flogged the person on the ground with a bit of garden hose. That becomes an assault. You can't do that, you know. So all up until that, and he was actually charged and probably convicted of common assault because you can't do the last bit. You got to
You
you got to
you
act
don't
like a police
qualify.
officer. So that's to answer that question about castle law. I think what we've
Yeah.
got in New South Wales is absolutely adequate. You can use reasonable force, and if that means shooting someone dead, then that's reasonable force. That's okay.
Well, in Texas, I'll speak for Texas part of it. So the gun laws in Texas is anybody can have a gun unless you're a felon. So if you've been accused and convicted of high crimes, then you're not allowed to have a weapon. I mean, a firearm. You can have, you can have other things to protect yourself, but you can't have firearms.
Mm,
But if you don't have anything like that, and if you're at home,
mm,
uh, you know, the castle law is at your castle. You don't have a duty to back down, you
mm,
know.
mm.
And if you shoot the guy 15 times, we're going to consider that reasonable force. I mean, it's because you didn't
Yeah,
have 16 bullets, and
I've heard that.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's unfortunate, but you don't go into other people's homes,
Mm, mm,
as well as in Texas at night, if they're still in your car, if they're still in cattle, if they're still in something at night, the
mm,
thing is the 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 offensive you're committing theft at night and
mm,
you're now you don't have to be in a person's home. Now if you're just in his driveway or if you're in his barn, if it's at nighttime and you're still in his four-wheeler or his ute or whatever,
mm,
deadly force is authorized in Texas. Not in the
mm.
daytime. I don't know
Ah,
why,
interesting.
but
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
it doesn't happen very often, but we've had issues with it, like where a somebody was getting their car repossessed, and it
Ah.
was at nighttime, and the tow truck hooked up to this guy's car and was
Mm,
starting to take it away, and the guy shot and killed him. And he didn't end up. He got charged for it, but he didn't end up getting convicted
right.
because it was nighttime. Uh, that one if you ask me, I think that guy would have known if he's not making his car payment, then
Yeah. Yeah,
eventually
you
the
got to
bank's
know
going to
that.
come get it.
Yeah, you got to know
So yeah, you gotta know.
that.
I mean, we used to get calls for someone stole my car at night, and you go over there and you like, are you up on the payments? Well, no. Well, you
Mm.
know, you probably need to call your bank, and yeah, sure enough, they got it repossessed.
So do they
Uh,
generally repossess cars during the day then?
no, they do it at night.
Oh, right.
Yeah, they're brave.
Yeah.
I'll tell you.
I'll say.
But I mean, I'm making it sound like we're all cowboys, to where we're just going to start blazing away.
Mm,
That's going to happen if you go into somebody's house. There's no doubt in my
mm,
mind that if a
mm,
guy's got a shotgun or a woman
mm,
or has got a
mm,
pistol or whatever, and
mm,
you're breaking into her house,
mm,
let me back up and tell you when I was in California in the Marine Corps,
mm,
um, people would say if somebody tries to break into your house in California and you shoot them and they fall outside the window, into the yard, you need to go in out and get him and drag him back inside because you're going to get in trouble, right? Because he wasn't inside your house. Texas is not that way. If you hit him with a shotgun, he's in your house and you blow him out the window or out the door, you just let him lie there. We're going to get there. We're going to do our reports and we're going to make sure the evidence matches
uh,
what he's saying, and
uh,
the due diligence will be done. We'll make sure he didn't text this guy, and say, "Hey, come on over and have pizza with me," because he didn't like the guy and then shoots him. We're gonna do due
mm,
diligence like that. But
mm,
um, if it's a righteous deal and it's a crime of unknown person, yeah, then you have it's your right and it's your duty, really.
mm, mm,
That person shouldn't be going in your house.
yeah,
That's just
yeah,
how we look at it.
yeah.
Uh, that's the castle law, and but the gun law that she's asking about for us is you don't have to have a license to carry. You can open carry. In other words, you can be at the grocery store and there'll be a guy standing next to you and he's got a pistol on his hip. You
Mm,
know.
mm,
Now, that law has only been available here for the last few years. But when
mm,
they were trying to pass that law and they asked me about it, I was one of the people to ask. And I said, yeah, I think they ought to be able to do that if they want to. I think that ought to be a right. However, if you go into a restaurant and you're going to want to rob a restaurant, let's say, uh, you're gonna end up robbing the restaurant. Somebody's gonna rob a restaurant while you're in there with a gun, and somebody from two tables over is gonna say, "You can't rob us. That guy over there's got a gun."
mm,
Well, that's the first place that robber is gonna go to is shoot you because you got a gun.
mm,
So conceal your weapon. You don't need everybody to know you're Billy
mm,
Badass with a weapon on your hip. Put it in your
mhm,
pocket,
mhm,
and
yeah,
you know, because people still are uncomfortable with people open carrying. I carry one in my pocket. No
mm,
one ever knows it.
mm,
No one ever
mm,
feels threatened or whatever.
mm,
And I don't want anybody ratting me out to the bad guy
mm,
before I can use
mm,
it.
yeah, yeah,
But people who have not carried a weapon for a job like you and I have,
mm.
they think it's cool if they get to carry one on. They think people are looking at them like they're
Yeah,
cool. you know,
it's
you and
funny,
I
isn't
couldn't
it?
wait to get home to take our weapon off of them.
I
Hey, can
used to
we carry
have,
it on?
I think I used to have some sympathy for what it might be for a lady to get home and take off their bra or their girdle or whatever it is and think, oh, good, can't
I
wait to
know.
get this off.
But you got to understand, these are
Mm.
people who, go to work and maybe they work at a newspaper or maybe they work at, like you said, a garbage truck and they
Yeah,
never really had that authority or that the weight of their badge that we had to carry. And they
yeah,
just think it's really cool and really groovy when you could go 20 years on the police force, and never
mm,
need it, but you got to carry it.
yeah. Um, yeah, one of the things I used to find was that people that had a little bit of power used to try and use it to the nth degree.
Yeah.
And they'd just be, I don't know if it's an American expression, but here we will call him a dickhead. They're just full of himself.
Yeah. That is a similarity. We say that word too.
One of the things that when I was thinking about this question, that I remembered when I joined the New South Wales Police, apparently we're one of the only two police forces in the world, maybe in the Western world, that was allowed to shoot a fleeing felon. And but it was probably seen to be so bad that the High Court, or it might have been the Supreme Court, said don't do it because we were allowed if we went to a job and there was someone that was a felon or had just committed a felony and was running away, and we had no other way of effecting the arrest, we were actually allowed to shoot them, which effectively meant shooting them in the back. But
Yeah.
when they went, a few years ago, during my time in the police, they got rid of that. They actually repackaged the powers of arrest into another piece of legislation, and that just dropped off the page.
Mm.
So anyway, I don't know who the other police force was, but that's what I was told.
No, so we can do that here
Yeah, you
in
can still
Texas.
do
Yeah.
that. Ah,
Felon, a felon, not misdemeanor, but
yeah,
if it's in the commission of a crime, let's say the person, you caught this person raping a lady. Let's just
yeah,
say that,
yeah,
right? And he
yeah,
sees you and he gets up and he runs.
yeah,
That's for us, it's a, felony. It's a high crime felony. And
yeah.
if the law says if there's a chance that you won't be able to apprehend this person,
Wow, okay.
you can shoot them. I don't know of anybody or any case that's happened. I'm sure it's happened, but I don't know of anybody. And I would have difficulty coming to terms. I A fast story. We were trying to get this guy that was a domestic violence guy out of the house,
Mm.
and he wasn't coming out. And he ordered pizza of all things while we've got this house surrounded.
Uh-huh.
So the pizza delivery guy comes right up, comes through our crime scene tape and everything, goes up to the door. Of course, now we're going to let him do it, right? So we had a SWAT team lined up stacked up on the door. And then so they're real like they're hugging the wall. And this pizza guy, he's like knocking on the door, and the guy opens the door to get his pizza, knowing that SWAT team's out there. And I was at the end of the house, on perimeter type of thing,
Mm.
and I could hear that guy. The floor was hollow. It didn't have a foundation concrete, so it was
Yeah,
like a frame house.
yeah,
So you can
yeah.
hear the person running inside,
Ah,
and
right.
I could hear him coming from from my left. He's running down the hallway, and then I hear him. So I get right close to the fence. It's a chain link fence, and he comes busting out of the window. I mean, 3 feet from me, and
Right.
I have an assault rifle on him, and
Ah,
he's running away from me. And it was that close before my brain registered. You can't shoot this guy. One, it's not a felony. Two, you're not going to shoot this man in bare feet that just went through a glass window. He's got to be able to have his day in court,
mm,
and so I didn't pull the trigger, and he ran into some other cops that were at the tree line. Uh,
right.
but I remember that when I mean, I
Mm.
literally took up all the slack in that rifle,
Wow.
but didn't commit. But
Mm.
that goes to show you that that's the uh, the adrenaline that you and I used to have to go through and make
Uh,
those split decisions.
it's amazing how quick your brain can work, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Amazing.
Because I could have, one, we've talked about this before. Everybody say, well, why didn't you just shoot the wrench out of his hand or whatever, the knife out of his hand? And I said, you'll be lucky to hit him, because you're going to have
Especially
this
with a pistol.
adrenaline go. Yeah.
Uh,
So you're going to have to shoot a lot of times just to try to hit him. And so I was thinking, even if I try to hobble him, which I ended up aiming at his Achilles heel while he was running, even if I'd done that, I would have ruined that man for the rest of his life. I don't know what happened with the case. That was him against,
uh,
that was for him and his lawyers and all that. It wasn't for me to decide that out there at that time.
mm,
So that's what people don't realize. They don't realize how close some of these people come to losing
yeah.
their life
Yeah. Yeah. What,
because
what,
we're going to go home.
yeah, exactly. Every night. What
You ever know?
constitutes a felon in Texas? What sort of offense or what sort of jail time?
So it would be more of an assaultive offenses that we're talking about. Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of felonies,
Mm,
uh, and you can commit theft if it's a high enough,
yeah.
uh, amount. It would consist of a felony. It just keeps
Yeah.
incrementally keeps climbing.
For
That's not
us,
what
it
we're talking
was
about.
5. For us, it was just 5 years or more. Doesn't mean you got 5 years, but if the offence carried
Okay.
5 years or more, that was a felony.
Yeah. That and
So just about
that's what I meant.
everything was a felony.
Yeah. It
I
could
mean, I
be, right?
think even, well, I'm not real sure now, but even maybe common assault. I'm not sure, but
Not for us. Common
uh,
assault, not for us. Aggravated assault or assault with bodily injury, those things
yeah.
would rise to the level.
The more I think about it, probably wouldn't be common assault. But anyway, yeah. So one of the other, when you mentioned before about nighttime, things happening in the night, another thing that when I joined the police, in the Crimes Act, where our powers of arrest were written down, one of them, interestingly enough, was about people hanging around in maybe something like an industrial area at night. Just hanging around at night was a power of arrest. You didn't have to see them
Really?
cutting a fence or jumping a fence or stealing something. It was merely something about hanging around an industrial area at night. It was
Was
in,
arrested.
if someone wants to Google it, it was in 352 1B or C. It was way down on the list of the Crimes Act 1900. Go and check it out. But I think that fell off the list too when they brought in this new Act of Parliament that was called the Law Enforcement Powers and Responsibilities Act. And I think the shooting the felon in the back and that other last one fell off the list.
Yeah, you know, unless we can articulate that there was a crime committed or about to be committed, we can't
Uh,
even. Well, I mean, we can ask for their information, or we can't even
mm,
identify. They say, "No, I'm not going to identify myself." Then,
mm,
if they haven't committed a crime and there's no crime about to be committed,
mm,
then you can't force them to give you
mm,
your information. So if they're in a industrial area or in a at a school out on the
mm,
outside on the outskirts of a school, not on the school grounds,
mm.
uh yeah, we can't just arrest because of the area that they're at.
Yeah,
If it's
yeah,
posted no trespassing or whatever, but if it's a
mm,
public road paid with taxpayer dollars,
mm,
then they have just as much right in Texas anyway. They have just as much right to be on the sidewalk or the road.
mm.
Now, if they stray off the road onto private property,
Yeah.
then it's up to the owner of the private property if they want to have this guy
Mm,
arrested for
mm, mm,
But we
mm.
have people in all over the country here that they go out and they try to bait police officers, and they call themselves First Amendment auditors.
All right.
And
Mm,
yeah, so they'll go into a post office. Well, that's paid for by the taxpayer money. Well, the
mm.
postal people will call the police because this guy's hanging out with a camera. The police will show up and say, "Well, the postal people want you to leave," and he says, "I don't have to leave. It's this is my property too." You know,
Ah, right.
and yeah,
Okay. Uh,
and some police officers get that wrong and they violate the person's constitutional rights, and we're very very stringent on that. So you
yeah.
really got to be educated, uh, on all avenues of the law. And one of these days
Yeah.
I'm gonna bring out my penal code book that is just criminal law, and it's this thick, you
Yeah.
know,
One of the
and we're
things that,
expected to know it.
oh yeah, one of the expressions I used to like to use was bush lawyers. You get
Yeah,
someone there saying, "Oh yeah, you can do this, you can't do that." I remember I said this lots of times, but one time I remember in particular, I said to this bloke, "Mate, what do you do for a job?" And he was a bricklayer. I said, "Okay, now listen, on Monday morning, I've got the day off on Monday morning. I'm going to tell me where you'll be Monday morning, and I'm going to come down and tell you how to lay bricks. I don't know anything about it, but I'm going to tell you how to lay bricks. How would that be?" He goes, "Well, you saw my
yeah,
point.
yeah.
Um, yeah, you become an
I
expert.
always got people.
Yeah,
I
become an
always got
expert at
people that.
criminal law."
Sorry, I'm trying not to talk over you. Um, I always get people, not all the time, but sometimes I would get somebody that had stopped, for a traffic violation, and they would get mad at me, and they were like, I pay your paycheck, because we get paid through taxpayer money, so they wanted to use it against you. Like, I pay your paycheck. You shouldn't be stopping me. You should be
Yeah.
stopping criminals.
I had that happen to me once, Mike. I was actually on my way about a 1 hour drive from my station down to another area where a murder had occurred. And my only duty down there was just guarding the crime scene. Anyway, I'm driving down this highway to get to this other town, and a lady in front of me was on a dual, was on an overtaking lane. This lady uh, went past me and then turned. She was in the left-hand lane and turned right in front of me to go into a farm where they were selling apples. I had to jam on the brakes to avoid a collision with her. So I then, of course, drove in and seriously, if she had been reasonable, I just would have let it go at that because I was on the way to a murder. And I didn't tell her that. Anyway, she started arguing with me. The only time in my career she dropped that line, I pay your wages. So at that point, mentally, I just go, okay, this lady's getting a ticket. And so I go for a ticket, and she was just rabbiting, we call it rabbiting on, just talking about. And I saw from her license, she was from one of the northern suburbs of Sydney, where they're very, very wealthy people, and she had that attitude. Anyway, and then in the end, I just said, "You are dismissed," and I knew that would push her over the edge. But I went like this: "You are, I get on the, you are dismissed." I went like that. I'll admit
Wow.
that was, I knew that would be provocative to her. Anyway, I got down to the station where I had to do these other duties, and the inspector, that's a commissioned rank, the inspector rang me. He said, "Peter, what happened?" Because she went into the police station to make a complaint about how horrible I was, and he just, he backed me up, but he did say to me, "Oh, next time, don't say dismissed." Anyway,
Yeah. So hey, let's got another one in here for another person wanted us to answer a question. Are you up for another one?
yep,
So Bear B Res Ford Thompson 1370. So he asks, he says, and first of all, he says another great episode, guys. So thank him for that. He said, in this day and age, I find it's weird. In some places, you can walk around open carry and no offense intended, like a cowboy in a movie. I would personally love it, but as a visitor, that isn't used to, but to a visitor that isn't used to it, would find it so offensive and threatening to see everyone walking around with a gun on their hip. How do you think? I know y'all have strict gun laws in Australia, but let's say hypothetically tomorrow there was a new law that came out that says everybody can open carry if you have a weapon, you can open carry it. You don't need a license. We don't need to know that you have it.
mm.
Uh, but if you wanted to open carry, you could. How would that make people around you feel?
I
Nervous?
think initially there would be people would recoil. No, no pun intended. People would be recoiled by that, but
It was a good one, actually.
but pretty quickly people would get used to it. And I actually have evidence of that because when I was a kid, mate, when I grew up in Sydney, in the western suburbs of Sydney, and that's the bad part.
Hmm.
And I was so I'm talking about 19. I left school in 75, so it would have been say early to mid 70s. We had the high school I went to, which was Punchbowl Boys High School, which is almost infamous for being a pretty wild place. We had a teacher who formed a shooters club, righto, and we used to meet, so it was Wednesday afternoon after school, and you could bring in your weapon. He said, "Okay, boys, it was a boys' school. Bring in your weapons." I went to school with a 22 caliber semi-automatic rifle. It would have been in a case. Got on the bus, went to school with a 22 semi-automatic rifle. Now, by today's standards, I would have had pole air up in the air pointing AK-47s at me to go into
Yeah,
Punchbowl Boys High School carrying a semi-automatic rifle, and it was
it's
completely
crazy,
legal.
isn't it?
No license. A 13 or 14 or 15-year-old kid. My parents
Hmm.
bought it for me.
Yeah.
And that would not,
Yeah.
I mean, and no one, I mean, maybe people might have looked at you, but people would get used to it. That's my long answer to the question. People would get used to it.
Why do you think Australia? Well, let me finish answering the question on my end of it,
Hmm.
uh, because we want to respect their question here. So in Texas, when that law hits where they can open carry freely, open carry, like I said, it's only been the last couple of years. You could always conceal carry, like what I prefer, but everybody, that was against it said, oh, everybody's going to lose their mind. They're going to see people carrying weapons. Everybody and their mother is going to be carrying a weapon. You literally don't see hardly anybody carrying. I think for the first couple of months, all the cowboys, all the people that thought, like I told you, the cool kids, they carried their weapon, and then I'm
Hmm.
sure they, like the rest of us, they just got tired of carrying it, and no
Hmm.
one really cared that they did carry it. And
Hmm.
so that kind
Yeah.
of just, it just kind of, you don't ever see anybody. I saw one the other day. His own reason why I mentioned it a while ago, but you can go months without seeing anybody open carry a
Hmm.
weapon. It's just,
Hmm.
it,
Hmm.
it just, it makes you feel like people are looking at you.
Okay. Right.
That's the way
Yeah.
I look
Yeah.
at it.
Yeah.
But so like Australia, like you're talking about, people got used to it. Even the
Hmm.
people that were carrying it got used to it and stopped doing it. They probably
Hmm.
got it in their pocket or in their truck or whatever.
So do
But
you,
go
okay.
ahead.
Do you think that do you have any information about what percentage of people would carry one in their pocket?
No,
Hmm.
I don't know of anybody that keeps those kind of statistics.
Hmm.
I mean, I carry every day, no matter where I go, I carry
Hmm.
one in my pocket. We discuss it, that little
Yeah.
380. In fact, I'm gonna bring it in here next
Yeah, I'd
time just
like to
so
see
you can
it.
see.
Yeah.
Yeah. And uh but no one, I mean, who's gonna know? Because
Hmm.
my shirt, I wear a long enough shirt that it covers my front pocket. It's a
Hmm.
very small weapon, and
Hmm.
you know, when I show it to you, you'll see what I mean.
Hmm.
I don't see, unless you're advertising it,. I don't see how anybody would know.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh,
What brand
I
is it?
what's that?
What brand is it?
Ruger?
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I'll text my wife see if she'll bring it in here. She might be she might be like, why are you bugging me for? But
That's because
that's
that's the husband's job, mate.
uh, yeah, I'm good at it too. Let's see here.
She might think you're in trouble. She, she's not going to come through the door doing a barrel roll and spraying bullets
No,
around, is she?
no, she'll come in running her mouth is what she's gonna come do.
That's right.
Can you bring my pistol from the drawer? I keep it right there by my chair, and I have. Well, I don't know if you can see up on those on the wall up here. You probably can't.
There's something in the top right I can't see. Is that a
Yeah,
pistol?
so I've got an old muzzle loader up there
Ah,
on
right. Mm.
black powder rifle. My grandfather gave me a 22 rifle when I was for my ninth birthday, and I've still got it.
That's
Yeah,
fantastic.
ninth birthday.
Wow.
No, I mean, he didn't let me just, all right, go kill all the birds you can find. I mean,
Uh,
it was a single shot rifle,
uh,
but, like we'd go to school and everybody, all the boys would have, if we drove to school, we have a rifle rack in our
oh,
truck with rifles hanging in there. No one, no, I mean, we were all brought up that way.
uh,
And now if you go within 500 foot of a school, you know,
uh,
the funny thing is, Peter, and for everybody else watching this little deal, when I went to school, you could bring a weapon onto the school grounds,
mm,
and we just left it in the car. It's not like we're bringing it into the building, but we also had a shed right behind the lunchroom that was there for the kids to smoke. It was a smoking shed. None of us were even 18, but they provided this place for the kids to go smoke
uh,
cigarettes.
wow.
But if you
Oh,
go in the building and your shirt tail is untucked, you got paddling for
that's funny, isn't it?
it. Isn't
Uh,
that crazy?
yeah. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You familiar with 303 caliber?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm, okay, I just didn't know because it was what the Australian Army used to carry that. That was their standard issue.
Was
I
it
think
Leopold, wasn't it?
sorry,
Leopold or Leopold 303?
Shortly Enfield it was called.
Oh, yeah.
Short,
Okay.
Shortly Enfield. And when I was a kid, we had one of me and one of my brothers. This old man, he just gave us a 303 rifle. He used to use it for target shooting. Here you go, boys, and it was just amazing just to have this huge caliber. I used to love the sound of a 303 going off. It was like the voice of God, just this massive boom.
Yeah, man.
No,
Did you ever
great
do any
caliber.
deer hunting
Ever what?
when you were growing up? Did y'all do deer hunting when you grew up?
No, no, there's no very little deer hunting in
Oh,
where I lived. Where that might be offensive to some people. What we used to most of the hunting we did was kangaroos.
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We don't
And
have
it sounds. I remember being one time on holidays. I was up in one of the towns way up the far north of Australia called Cairns, Cairns, and Cairns
yeah.
is a real tourist spot. And I was up there on holidays, and I was actually talking to a lady that was from the United States, and she must have asked me something, and I said, "Oh, we hunt kangaroos," and I thought she was probably going to belt me or hit me, but she was pretty cool with it.
Yeah. Hey, American tourists, they can show themselves, you know.
Yeah, well, she didn't seem to mind. Um,
Yeah, good.
so
Good.
what was you think was the best day in your policing career, if you can narrow it down to one?
I don't know because they were all so fun. I mean,
Uh,
there was I could probably name more tragedy than I can uh try to sort out the best day because well, finding the missing child.
yeah,
That's a
yeah.
good day because
Mm,
they get out in the woods and
wow.
and
Mm,
they could get wild animals could get to them and things like that. So we're talking 2 or 3 year old kids
yeah,
and
because you've got animals that can kill people. We don't have that.
yeah, yeah, we do. Well, you have snakes and things like
Oh,
that.
yeah,
So
but you just shoot them away with a broom.
yeah, well, now if you're 2 year old, you don't.
No,
And
no,
if you're lost, you're not taking a broom with
yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah, you're right. Yeah,
What about
um,
you? What was your best day?
we had a really old piece of legislation that's since been rescinded. It was called the Inebriates Act, 1912, and I used to use that to put people away into a drying out centre for months and months and months at a time. And one of the times that I went to this new police station, and there was a retirement village there, and was being harassed or terrorised really by this drunken fool that lived there. He was quite an elderly gentleman, or not elderly, but he would just get drunk and he'd just be abused these lovely old ladies. And the
Mm,
police that were at that station, they didn't know about this Inebriates Act 1912. And so I knew about it, and I thought I can use that. And so I spoke to these ladies. I didn't bore them with any details. I said, listen, ladies, there's something that I'm going to try and do. And it just means it's a few hours' work on the computer, getting statements from a doctor and getting all the permission that you need to do that. And you put a brief of evidence together, including photographs. I can put my opinion in the statement. Anyway, put all that together, put an application before the court. This is all on the same day. The local
mhm.
court was sitting, put all this information together, have it listed, put this bloke before the court, and the magistrate looks at all the evidence. He goes, yes, and he's got to formally say, I declare you to be an inebriate. And then we put a suggestion on the order about how long he's put away for. And, yeah, and invariably they get put away for months and months and months. And it was such a pleasure to be able to go and see these sweet, lovely, elderly ladies. I think there was three of them, and they had tears in their eyes. I said,
Wow.
ladies, he's not coming back. And because of the circumstances where he lived, he was never coming back because his lease would be invalid or whatever it was, and he was never coming back. And I used that act of parliament quite a few times. But that was one of the times. It was lovely to be able to look after lovely old ladies.
Yeah, it's you know so. you remind me of I had a arrest. I arrested a man, an old man. Probably at the time he was a lot older than me, but I think he was probably in his 60s at the time. Here I am,
That
66.
happens.
Yeah, I don't feel like I'm that old though, but
No,
I am.
and you're not.
But he was sexually assaulting, sexually abusing his own child for years and years and years.
Yeah.
And it was my call that I got to go on, and we got the evidence and things like that. And he ended up getting life and without parole in prison. So
Wow.
that was so
Fantastic.
things like that, that
Mm.
you can do. Yeah, but there's so many of them.
Yeah,
There,
yeah, yeah, yeah. And there should be.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. One time I was on the arrest team of a doctor, a general practitioner doctor, who was sexually assaulting patients.
Mm,
He would give them some sort of inoculating drug. They might have went in there for a sore knee, and he would give them some sort of painkiller. And then when they came to, they realised something else had happened.
mm,
And this, so it's very, very hard to prove. But then a court gave the police permission to put a wire on this lady, and he offered her a paltry amount of money. It was just in the hundreds of dollars, I think, to say nothing. So they got all that recorded, and of course that was enough to arrest him, charge him, and convict him. And I was one of the arresting police, and that was such a pleasure to lock
yeah.
up some creep like that. I
Oh,
loved
hell
it.
yeah. 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 We do more of that than that's almost a daily thing though.
Yeah.
Do we running out of time?
Yeah, yeah, we are. Yeah.
I mean, it goes by so fast, doesn't it? Was that so we only had two, you didn't have any more questions? I
Oh,
didn't
there
have any.
is, but we can handle it next time.
Yep.
Uh, uh,
Wow, that was a fast one.
it was.
I enjoyed talking to you. I enjoyed talking to Wade too. So
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, I look forward to it all week too. It's a lot of fun.
yeah.
And it's good to, I mean, me coming down here and catching up with Wade beforehand, that's always fun.
Yeah,
And,
he's a character,
yeah,
man.
yeah,
I,
he's an absolute genius at this stuff.
man,
He's an island treasure, I can tell you that.
I bet. I
Yeah.
bet. Y'all, I'm glad y'all got together. I'm glad we got together. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah,
if it
yeah.
hadn't been for the internet, or
Yeah.
the YouTube or
Mm,
whatever,
no.
it'd been, you know,
Yeah.
but there's so many similarities between law enforcement that I'm finding out between
Mm,
Texas and in
mm,
Australia.
mm.
I think we need to nail down I never said who places the police in Texas,
Yeah. Mm.
but we can circle the wagons on that one next time.
Okay. Right. No worries. Well, we'll see you in a week.
All right, man.
Yeah.
See you.
And maybe then the pistol have showed up. You can show us the pistol.
Yeah, I don't. She didn't even respond on the phone. So
Right.
you see what? I
No
don't have any
worries.
standing in this
That's
house.
right. Okay. Cool. Well, thanks, brother. And
All right.
see you in a
Good
week.
seeing you, man. All right,
Ta-da.
bud. Bye.